Yeah, well, the tragedy that's in the news today is heartbreaking. First, the losses in Florida, again, secondary in part to the tragic shooting that happened there. And then the recent news here in Connecticut about a family member of a child that was murdered at Sandy Hook. These are tragedies across this country. And unfortunately, we have this conversation all too often. Commonly, in circumstances like this, when people are experiencing or have been exposed to the kind of trauma that happened in the Parkland shooting and that happened in the shooting at Sandy Hook, is everyone's affected by this differently. And so one of the things that we need to do is to make sure that people are all going to experience this in a different way. And we need to stay close in touch with the folks who have been exposed to that level of trauma, not just immediately when it happens, but over a long period of time. These events change someone for their whole lives, and we need to continue to stay attentive and on top of it. It's hard to answer how any one person is going to experience these kind of symptoms. So the general symptoms of a post-traumatic stress disorder vary a bit, but it's really an array of both behavioral symptoms and cognitive symptoms and certainly emotional symptoms. It could relate to feelings of being unsafe and feeling always at risk, can be associated with sleep disturbance and appetite disturbance. A lot of times there is rumination, preoccupation with the events that happened, and an inability to kind of put it away. So different people experience this in very different ways.
Should people be talking to their kids about this? And if so, how?
Yeah, though that's a very, very good question, and it's a question that we hear from parents all the time. Should I bring this up to my kids? I'm afraid if I bring it up to the kids, I'm going to put this thought in their mind, and maybe we should just avoid it. And there is really no benefit that comes from this, but these moments really create the opportunity for dialogue. It's really important that we talk, not just with our kids, but with our loved ones about these kind of circumstances. When this stuff is in the media, secondary to the tragedies that just happened, it provides the opportunity for us to dialogue about what is an incredibly important topic. Suicide is one of the leading causes of death in this country, and it's on the rise. So many other health conditions, because of really great screening and treatments available, we're seeing those conditions improve. But because we don't have enough of the either resources and the screening approaches to dealing with anxiety and depression, we've got a condition which is increasing in frequency, and we really have to face that and talk more about it. In terms of what we should do with our kids, we have to be open. We have to be open and honest and ask very direct questions. Are there times that you think your life is not worth living? Are there times that you want to go to bed at night and hope you don't wake up in the morning? Those kind of questions can stimulate a conversation and a discussion with a person, and initially they may find it a little upsetting and unnerving. Far better to ask the question than to not ask the question. Depending upon the answers, there's another set of questions that we would sort of roll to. Have you had thoughts about ending your life? Have you made attempts? Have you done some things to organize resources as a way to end your life? Those kind of very clear, specific questions, perfectly acceptable to ask, far better to ask them than to not ask them.
I guess tell us a little bit about it and maybe why people feel that way.
Yeah, people have used the term, again, it's a little bit of a catch-all, survivor's guilt. It's associated with a person who has been exposed to a really significant traumatic event, and they themselves were not harmed, but people they love, people they care about were harmed. And so that sets up a whole other set of emotions that someone is going to have. Why was I selected? How come that didn't happen to me? I don't feel great about the fact that I survived and a person I care about, and I look at all of what's happening to their family and their lives. So it's common that people are going to have a whole variety of emotions associated with being exposed to trauma. I think something else that's very important, we talk about Parkland that happened a year ago, Sandy Hook happened some time ago. These events transform you for your whole life. And what happens is they can get re-energized or stimulated, if you will. If you think about the tragedy that just happened in New Zealand, and you can say that New Zealand is a world away from Connecticut, but it's on my TV. I mean, it's in my living room. And so if you've been exposed to these kind of tragedies close to home, something even happening half a world away is going to reawaken that. And that's a really important time for loved ones to come forward and say, I imagine you must be having a difficult time with this right now. Based on what happened several years ago, I can imagine this must be very reminiscent of that. And are there things I can do to support you? And then to ask these other questions.
So would you say that that would be, if you know someone who's a victim of something like that, would you say that the best approach would be to, you know, kind of be open with them, or should you be careful as to what you're bringing up?
Yeah, I think our efforts at being careful are failed efforts. I think people are trying to be sensitive and they're trying to be respectful and they think that's helpful. It's not helpful. This really needs to be a all hands on deck approach. So this is not just guidance staff, this is not just school teachers, this is not just other adults. These are peers, these are the proverbial lunch lady, this is the folks who walk around the campus who know the kids and say, he looks funny. I'm going to say something about that. I'm going to bring that to someone's attention. It really has to be the engagement of everyone to say this is all of our problems, and if we're going to make a dent in this and we're going to start to impact positively on what is an increasing tragedy in this country, we have to do something different. So being quiet and being respectful and thinking you're being sensitive is not working. So it's time to do something different, and everyone needs to engage.
What kind of symptoms, like what warning signs might you see in someone who's planning to commit suicide?
It's a great question. There are typical warning signs. So what we always look for, are there any significant changes in behavior? There are changes in things that you used to love to do that right now don't make you excited. If you see changes in sleep, in appetite, in friendships, are you more withdrawn? Certainly depressed mood, episodes of tearfulness, but also feeling shut down. So I think really what we're looking for is anything that demonstrates a change from someone's baseline, if you will, the way they normally conduct themselves. That should lead to a little bit of curiosity. Hey, you seem a little different. How about we talk about that for a little bit? And based on those questions, leading deeper into some of the other questions that we talked about is exactly the right thing to do.
Lastly, where can people turn for help, and what kind of help is there?
Yeah, so there is an abundance of help for all of these conditions. One of the things that we have to emphasize is to really make sure that we're communicating about the many, many resources and so many communities that are available. You know, at Hartford Healthcare, we really believe that your primary care doctor or pediatrician is really the quarterback of your healthcare. So I used to say, and still say, if you're going to talk to your primary care doc about your orthopedic issues, you're going to talk to your primary care doc about your hypertension, you should be talking to your primary care doc about depression, around substance abuse, about anxiety-related issues. Many of these are conditions that can be treated by your primary care doc, but in the event that they want to turn to a specialist, both our organization and plenty of organizations throughout the state of Connecticut provide an array of behavioral health services that can really help and make a difference and save lives.